I've been seeing a lot of posts about things like When We Were Young Fest or the new Warped Tour being announced, and I've just been coming home every day and talking my girlfriend's head off about how badly I wish I could just be on those stages. I've just been experiencing this like major FOMO, seeing all these people that I actually know now personally get to play the shows and walk the grounds and sell merch and meet fans and do the whole thing. And then somewhere in my commiserating, she'll usually just stop me and go like, Sam, you don't even like touring. And then I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. So today I kind of break down the last 4 years of my touring experience along with my kind of more long-term or extensive history with playing live music in general, and break down the pros and cons, some things that you might not really know about it, and hopefully help myself suss out some of these like FOMO feelings. For this video, I'm going to conceptualize this into 3 parts: the mind, the body, and the spirit. So we talk about the body, we think about things like physical fitness, physical wellness, anything in general that has to do with your physical well-being. Being on tour is not really the best place to be if you're somebody who puts a lot of prioritization over taking care of their body, because you just really can't give your body the attention that it deserves. Eating fast food is not something that I really choose to do unless I'm on the road. It's my only option. When it's 3 a.m. and the only thing that's open is Wendy's, then most likely you're going to be getting Wendy's, because otherwise you're going to be starving. And to be honest, starving isn't always the worst choice. We do try to eat at least one legitimate meal every day, like a sit-down meal at a local restaurant or maybe a continental breakfast at a hotel. But beyond that, you're kind of on your own as far as making health decisions for what you're going to put into your body. Gyms are definitely available at most hotels, and you do get to burn some calories just by walking around the city, or obviously by playing the show itself will help you burn a ton of calories and stay a little bit more physically active. But you also have to remember that for every show that you're playing, you're also sitting upright in a van for like minimum 3, sometimes 5 hours, especially if you have a day off and you're doing a far drive, or sometimes 6, 8 hours where you're just stationary. And as somebody who really enjoys to wake up early and go for a run or lift some weights and then get to bed pretty early to get a lot of sleep, becoming a night owl for tour is never really an easy adjustment. I also personally happen to have quite a few kind of like dermatological issues. I have a lot of problems with eczema and allergies to things like excessive sweating. So when you play a show, you don't get to shower for like the next 3 or 4 hours while you pack up and drive to the next city, it can rack up in some dermatology bills pretty quickly. And finally, when one person gets sick, everybody gets sick. Forget about saving yourself. You will be sick at some point. Let's talk about the mind. The mind can suffer for a lot of reasons on tour, but the first one that I thought of was just the amount of screen time. Yes, we're probably already all in some sort of unhealthy relationship with our screens. I mean, it's 2024, I get it. But when you have literal hours to just kill every single day, it's not surprising when your screen time just doubles, like it's nothing. It can feel so nauseating when you just spend hours every single day scrolling or just swiping between the same 3 different apps. Just makes you feel like a robot. I've like felt my self-esteem decrease sometimes when I'm spending 10, 15 hours a day sometimes on the cross-country kind of driving things on my phone. And when you get to do other things with your crew, a lot of times they're on their phones too. They're oftentimes on their phones at meals. They're oftentimes on their phones when they're laying in bed. They're oftentimes on their phones when you're in the green room. When you're on your phone too much, your mind kind of starts to think about the things that you could be doing if you weren't on tour right now. You could be at home working on something that's going to help you make more money than if you were on tour. You could be spending time with friends, family, loved ones. You could be doing things to just relieve your stress, like going for a walk or playing a sport or painting or whatever it is that you like to do. Not to mention that you kind of give up your privacy when you're on tour. And this is a big general blanket statement, so it's not for everybody, but generally speaking, you don't usually have your own private hotel room, or generally speaking, you don't just have your own vehicle that you can just go do whatever you want with. You usually have to be accompanied either in a vehicle or in your sleeping arrangements with at least one other person. It also kind of sucks to see what you miss when you're on the road, like birthday parties or just events. I mean, I've almost missed funerals before because I was on tour. Creature comforts are also probably out the window too. If you're somebody that just needs to sleep with 5 pillows, but the person that you're sharing a bed with is also needing 5 pillows, well then, concessions are made. If you like to shower in the morning, but the other 4 people that you're in a room with also like to shower in the morning, then you're going to become a night shower. It's just kind of a lot of little things that add up. And a lot of it is just things that you didn't really know that you had a preference about until you don't really have much of a choice anymore, like what time you're going to be driving that day, or what time you want to be doing your next load of laundry. Let's move on to the spirit. When you're on tour, there's kind of this mentality of like, okay, it's time to go to work. And the obvious pro is that every 2 or 3 days you have a day off and you get to just play music for your living. But the relationship between work and non-work kind of serves to balance out the spirit a little bit. What I mean by that is that when you're home for too long, you kind of start to feel like you don't have purpose. So then it's time to go to work. And when you're at work for too long, you kind of feel like you need some leisure time. So it's time to go home. But when you're on tour, there's only one environment, really. Somebody in a crew often likes to say that every day on tour just feels like 2 days in the regular world. I've kind of just felt like it feels like cabin fever. I mean, when I'm home, I already only have 2 real spaces that I can go to, which is probably not good for me right now anyway. When I'm on tour and I only have one, it just significantly decreases the nourishment that I need for my spirit. On top of all of these things, the people that you're with drastically change the condition of your mind, body, and spirit when you're on tour. I said this before, I think, in my cover band versus original band video, but touring with Concrete Castles and touring with First 11 are 2 completely different experiences. Touring matters almost entirely with who you're doing it with. And even though I've pretty much had the exact same, 5-ish people with me on every tour that I've done, adding or subtracting even one of those people makes such a huge difference. It can just drastically change the dynamic. If somebody wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, they will slam doors in your face. They will throw 20-pound rat cases at your head. They'll go on a silent streak and not talk to you for 3 days. Literally, they won't tell you where the stage is. If it's in a weird location through back corridors and stuff, they'll make you forbidden from driving the van. Most people don't do that, but just unfortunately, speaking from personal experience, be warned that that is very possible and you'll be with them for 3-5 weeks at a time. So now you know all the reasons that I don't like touring. So why do I still do it? Let's talk about the pros. I love getting to meet fans. It's pretty much the main driver for why me, and I can pretty safely say for why all of us choose to tour in the first place. I think getting to be face-to-face with people who basically make your job a reality is very special. And being a musician, it gives you a really healthy relationship between those people. What I mean by that is that even if I was a lawyer, I don't think I'd be sitting around thinking man, I'm really happy that this guy robbed banks, that, I have a living now. It's not really somebody that I'd want to go make a tea time with on Sunday. But I love seeing fans. And I love seeing recurring fans. I now have inside jokes and stories with people who I've seen 5, 6, 7 times at shows before. Seeing the country is another huge advantage. Somebody who always kind of daydreams about what it might be like to live outside of my hometown, getting to tour is just kind of like getting little taste tests of every little city. It's a lot of cities that you wouldn't have even thought to stop in for the most part. Even though I think by week 3, most of us are getting a little bit sick of each other, which is normal because that's just every human. I get it. I've also never laughed harder, I think ever, than, when it's 1 a.m. in the van and everybody's just deliriously tired and you're playing Would You Rather, or you get to your hotel and everybody just stays up watching ridiculousness for no reason, or you're going to find skate parks in every new city. I think I've also had a lot of really amazing emotional growth on tour, and I'm on the younger side, especially when I first started touring. I'm running into a lot of older guys in the business, crew members, bandmates, lighting directors, sound guys, whatever. They've all had really awesome heart-to-heart conversations with me about everything. It's really helped me to kind of figure out a little bit more about myself. When you're on your own in the middle of Nebraska and your engine starts rattling and you've nobody to call and you don't know anybody, you figure out a way to make the engine stop rattling. And I think that I also kind of like meeting people on tour because a lot of them are just really apt at problem solving. Similar to what I said in my original bands versus cover bands video, I think that the networking on tour is also really awesome because even though you're only seeing the same group of 20 or 30 people every day, you become very intimate with those people. When you get to tour with a few bands, you spend off days together in Vegas gambling, you get to have, like I said, really good heart-to-hearts, and they're people that you don't really forget for the most part. I still text people that I've met from tour all the time. I was texting some of the people from Against the Current the other day about a new movie that I watched. I still get hit up by some people in the funeral portrait asking about mixing work. Some of these people have just become truly great friends, and I'm really grateful that touring has kind of allowed me to experience that. Although touring is meant to be raising awareness about a record you just did or just gathering more fans, a lot of people that tour don't make a lot of money and are used to very just little living accommodations, and a lot of them just kind of do it because they love it. In fact, some people I know that aren't even musicians, some of them don't even own homes. They just are on tour 10, 11 months out of the year, and they'll just rent a storage unit for the rest of the time that they're home. While I personally could literally never imagine myself trying to do something like that, it makes me really happy that some people are just so fulfilled to live nomadically. It truly just makes them happy. I think maybe the closest non-industry related comparison I can draw is being a pilot maybe. You're gone a lot of time, you just don't get to be home. You're traveling, but it's not really a vacation necessarily. A lot of your time is spent either waiting around or just stationary, let's just say. And I imagine that a lot of the people you're doing it with is kind of like the same recurring group of people. If there are any pilots in the chat, and I know that there's at least one who's watching this video, feel free to correct me. Most touring artists won't experience like the good life of touring, if that makes sense. Like they won't experience a personal bus or personal hotel rooms or good meals all the time. Or, I mean, at least they won't normally experience that and also be making money. So for me and the kind of music that I make, I think generally speaking, I can kind of expect this like quality of touring where it's, shared bed, shared van, decent meals, but not great meals, the same crew, probably for the rest of my touring career. Which means I still haven't really answered the question of why I feel like I'm missing out on things. Maybe it's just because I'm hopeful that one day I will just enjoy the lifestyle more. I have to admit, being in my early 20s and having like the freedom to live this lifestyle and not wanting to live it makes me feel like I'm wasting it, to be honest. I mean, I don't have any kids. I'm not exactly missing work by touring. I mean, I should want to do this, but I don't. And it kind of just reminds me of the same feeling of like not wanting to drink. I've also thought that, like, I don't know, maybe it just is subconscious, but it feels like I have to wear it like a badge of honor, like I have to earn my way through the music industry or something. I've also thought that maybe that's why some people, not a lot, just get a little upset, you might say, that, I can have the life that I have by only doing one tour a year. Maybe I feel badly because I have seen some of my friends make touring work. They can tour for a long portion of the year and then also have families and have like a good home life. So, I feel like I'm just cutting myself excuses all the time. I think maybe I also sometimes feel badly because we don't really see a lot of actual faces, in-person, one-to-one connections with people, and it's a lot more usernames and profile pictures. It kind of tricks your mind into thinking that you're not really doing anything with your musical life. It just kind of makes you feel like, I wonder if these people are really here. And fortunately, I've been able to meet a lot of people on tour, so I can kind of remind myself that no, this is all real, everything is fine. Or I get to meet with people on Zoom sometimes for like Patreon calls, but there are definitely moments where I'm like, are they out there? Are they real? Maybe I feel badly about not touring, because if you tour more, you generally get invited to do things like When We Were Young Fest and the new Warped Tour. I mean, for literal years, my entire dream was just to play Warped Tour. And now I know, of course, from like insiders that it's pretty much the most brutal tour ever conceived of. And I would not have lasted and also simultaneously had fun, I think, if I had actually done it. I think maybe there's also a part of it that's like, okay, we've made it. And deep down, younger Sam, the one who wants to just play Warped Tour and have that life, is just a little disappointed that adult Sam is not really into it. It kind of just feels like adult Sam is passing on the dream that young Sam had. But the younger version of myself also couldn't really have imagined what his life would be like at 24 years old. He wouldn't have really been able to conceptualize being like a normal, stabilized, functioning member of society who like goes to work every day, loves spending time with his family, and just kind of loves being home and owning a home even. So for now, touring is just kind of like my friend that lives in a different state and visits every summer, and I see them for a very short but concentrated point of my year, and when it's time to go back to reality, then it's time to just say, see you around, to that friend.